Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Welcome, everyone. We're back at PCA's national office. Around the table, we have Manny Albin at the controls. We have Damon Lowney, and I'll introduce our special guest in one moment. Want to make sure we thank Pirelli for their sponsorship of PCA Insider. Without their support, this wouldn't happen. I want to thank all of you that are listening, current PCA members. And if you're not a current PCA member, grab that VIN, head over to pca.org. and make sure you make yourself a member. If you're looking for that special Porsche, we have the test drive program. Just go to pca.org and you can sign up, and we'll unlock some resources to find you that car for your driveway or garage. And once you become a member, you have many opportunities to join in the PCA member-only raffle. And as of the launch of today's podcast, it'll be the last day for you to get in the spring raffle, and that is for the GT3 plus $35,000 cash. And we also have 3 other, maybe 4 911 Carreras, plus $35,000 cash. So
if you're listening to this on the Monday when it comes out,
yes,
this is your last day.
And
it shuts off. They can call in, right? Or do they have to have it postmarked?
No, they can call in unless they're from Washington State. There's some very specific rules there.
Can
but
they drive over to California and can call in?
No Washington area.
End of day. So the best thing to do is to do it online, again, unless you're from Washington State, which different rules apply. Get in, and good luck.
Yeah, hopefully somebody, I guess everyone's deserving, but somebody.
What I always chuckle about, if you don't mind, is I'll get into how people have questions with the assumption that they are going to win.
Well, that's my favorite.
Of course.
How's the car equipped? And what color? They're not just like the people who don't play the lottery when it's only 400 million.
Yeah.
I don't get serious unless it's 700 or 800 million. I don't get out of bed.
I've got you beat, Manny. There's someone sent in their raffle entry, and it was very cute. They attached a letter. You could tell they're a little bit older, and they said, "When you come, please do me a favor and ask the person 2 doors down to help you surprise." Not my next door neighbor. So apparently their next door neighbor they're not so close with, but 2 doors down, Bob and Sally will, really do a great job surprising me. So
he's told Bob and Sally, hey, just in case,
yeah.
I've entered this raffle, bought one ticket, and if I win,
if there's these guys that show up and say that your neighbor won a car, it's going to be legit.
But it's optimism reigns supreme. In the human spirit.
Absolutely.
I'm impressed that you're not wearing a Porsche. Really, I didn't know you owned a shirt that wasn't with the Porsche graphic on it.
Well, this is
PCA.
this is PCA.
It has Porsche on the back.
This is a PCA.
Oh, it is. Oh, here I was impressed that you weren't wearing a.
I
you
get that
actually owned a
complaint.
non-PCA
I
shirt.
get that complaint all the time from Loanne. When we go out, on the evening, she's like, "Can you wear something that does not have a Porsche or PCA logo?"
No.
And I'm like, that's gonna take me a while.
That fits.
Oh,
I know what that's like. I know what it's like.
man, you see
My
that?
my closet is the evolution of Manny's weight.
Oh my gosh! And how many? And do you have the shirts that you hope that you'll go back into?
Oh, absolutely.
My motivation.
Well, you stretch them out before you put them on.
And then you watch it to go out of style, and you're like,
All right, we are really going off course here, so I'm gonna bring it back. And you've heard his voice. He's got this very smooth voice. You've heard him on a video with us before when he was talking about confessions of a Porsche salesman. In fact, he was a salesman for 4 decades, recognized as a top 100 worldwide Porsche sales individual, and it's Michael Maurer. Thank you for joining us again today. And I've got lots of questions, and I know Manny does too, and Damon as well. And for the past few years, I would say maybe even a decade, we've enjoyed a pretty flourishing market when it comes to Porsche and resales and cars availability and models and all that stuff. But it wasn't always that way. And so we thought maybe we'd bring you in and maybe help reset people and have them understand how fortunate we are that the brand that we covet actually is doing quite well, considering there was a certain point in time that the future of Porsche was like, will it be here next year? But before that, 4 decades of being a Porsche salesperson, you're, I guess I would say, retired now, but you're still in the mix. You've been doing something you love for so long. You didn't totally give it up, but how did you begin? Are you from this area? Cars was always part of your life?
Always, yeah. My dad was a naval officer. We lived in Annapolis 2 different times for 2 years each. Dad taught at the Naval Academy, and then later was part of the administrative staff. He was a deputy commandant when I was a senior in high school. He was a car nut. In Europe, we always had a 356 or a Mercedes. And
oh, cool.
My sister and I drove around Europe in the back of a 356, and we fought about who got to sit behind Mom because she was short.
More leg space.
More leg room.
Yeah.
But no, I've always been a car guy, always. And British cars to begin with because they were more affordable.
Manny? Oh, I thought he was going to throw a British car joke out.
Well, thank you.
Move on.
Vice President listens evidently, and we're not allowed to make comments about British cars.
I have to rein him in. Yeah.
But Porsche to me was always a passion, just a passion. And it runs in the family. My son is also a PCA member. And when he was in diapers, he would go, oh, 944, 944, 914, 911. And then he would say, Hoo-ba-hoo. We go, what's a Hoo-ba-hoo? That's a Subaru.
Oh, Hoobaroo.
So the acorn hasn't fallen far from the tree.
So when did you get into saying, I think I want to work with the brand? And did you get into car sales initially, or how did that evolve?
I, being a Porsche guy, thought, yeah, it would be great to sell them. I know all about them. So I went over to the local Porsche dealer and said, I want to sell Porsches. And they go, Mike, you know everything about it, but you've never sold a car. And they said, if you go to the Toyota store down the street and sell 20 cars in 1 month, you can come on with us.
Really?
So I went to the Toyota store, and that's a different world than a Porsche world.
Yeah.
It was loud. It was aggressive. Numbers, volume. And that's the old-fashioned car business where here are the books to your new car. Here are the keys to the new car. It's out there. Go get it.
Really?
And next, please, let me wait on the next guy so I can get my volume down. It took me 3 months to sell 20 cars in a month at Toyota. Went over to the Porsche store and said, hey, I did it. He goes, go do it 2 months in a row. I went, you mean 40 cars? They averaged about 8 to 10 new Porsches a month back then. Audi and Porsche were always dueled. So the process of selling a Toyota is the same as it is selling any other car. And the pay was significantly better with Porsche because of the profit margin. It was 20% profit margin with Porsche. It was 10 and 11% with the Toyotas and Hondas. So it was a no-brainer. Make more money. Go to where you really enjoy the product, because that's not work if you enjoy the product. So I just fell into it that way.
So in the early 80s, was Toyota's brand already strong and it was fairly easy to sell a Toyota, or was it like Hyundai and Kia today where it's kind of like coming up?
It was coming up.
It was coming up.
Honda was coming up. Toyota was coming. It was the Japanese invasion, they called it, in the late 70s, early 80s.
So they didn't have a lot of competition from American cars.
Oh, none.
So they were kind of like easy pickings because you had these cars that were very reliable, get fuel efficient.
Yep.
You know, it was a transition where the American cars were just learning how to make small cars, affordable, efficient small cars.
Yes, and reliable as can be. That was Porsche's strong point. Porsches did not break. They were so expensive, but you never had to fix them. In theory.
Yeah.
So
when you finally met the goal, 2 months in a row selling 20 cars a month. Now they'll take you in.
Now they took me in.
Wow.
Yep.
And was it the same dealership house, or was it?
It was.
It was. Okay, so maybe it'll be easier.
Brumos had a franchise in Atlanta, and that's where I ended up going, was Brumos, Atlanta. We shared inventory with Brumos in Jacksonville. Management was the same. We had Brian Redmond there. We had Hurley Haywood there.
In Atlanta? Really?
Brian was with us for, about a year and a half. It was fun to work with. We really were a very central and a very highly respected Porsche store. And the Atlanta market was much greater than the Jacksonville market. We outsold Jacksonville by almost 2 to 1.
Oh.
But it was fun. It was really fun.
And it was, so did you have to sell Audis as well? Because it was tied
Yes.
in the same dealership? Okay.
Yes. The Audis were kind of your bread and butter until 1986, when Audi was destroyed by a TV program called 60 Minutes.
Oh, is that the
It
acceleration?
was called Unintended
Yes,
Acceleration.
I remember that. My uncle did the absolute opposite of most people. He saw it such a great buy. He started buying like every Audi 5000 that was available. I'm like, Uncle, why you have like 4 Audi 5000s in the driveway? He's like, it's a great deal. Nobody wants them.
He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Every employee at the dealership bought an Audi 5000, and then we would certify them.
Yeah.
We'd put them through the shop, have them brought, and Audi paid for it.
Oh.
So you got a perfectly certified Audi 5000 for nothing. They were dirt cheap. So,
Oh.
And there was funny. You go to any 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
and all those concrete poles metal poles are all bent. You can't blame Audi for that.
But your bread and butter was you'd sell 5 or 6 Audis each month, and that was enough to pay the mortgage and the kids' tuition and that. Porsche income was bread and butter. That was on the top. That was the cherry, salary wise. And you sold, if you were lucky, 3 or 4 new Porsches a month. And they paid 3 times what the Audis did. So at one point, about 5 years into selling, I put a sign. We had offices, individual offices, and I put a sign on my office door that said, Porsche sales exclusively. I got away with that for about a year, and the general manager one day says, what is this? Porsche exclusively. You got to sell 10 Audis or you can't sell any more Porsches. Oh, I'm sorry.
So on a showroom floor, how many Audis did you have versus Porsches?
About 5 to 1. We had the 5000s and the 4000s. And then we had no 914s because they stopped being produced in 76, I want to say. And the 944 came out in 87. So between 82 when I started and until the 944, we had a 911. That was it.
That was it, one model.
One model, yeah. 3 different variants, of course. But 83 was the first year of the Cabriolet. We did, in fact, have 911 Targas, Cabriolets, and Coupes.
So what was it like selling, a luxury premium item without the likes of the internet? I think you probably took ads in papers and you had car shows, I guess. What was your, or was it primarily word of mouth and networking?
It's a good question. It's the rapid change in automotive sales with the internet, but it was all face-to-face, people coming into the showroom or the telephone. And you would see the receptionist announce, there is a sales call on line 1. Speakers booming, loud, there's a sales call. And you'd watch all the salesmen run for the telephones to pick up the sales call.
You didn't have a system of who gets it?
Oh, no. It was dog eat dog.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And so your face-to-face was the way to sell. You could sell somebody on the phone if you tried and you knew them, but face-to-face. And as a side note, we had 2 dealers in Atlanta, Jim Ellis and Brumos, and we salespeople all knew each other quite well. And the people would drive from one dealership to the next and trying to get their best price. Well, what they didn't know was we sales guys had already talked to one another and said, Joe Blow's coming over. He's driving an old 911. we're not giving them a discount. Don't you do it either. So
Oh.
it was price collusion back in the 80s.
Wow.
Huh.
Sherman Antitrust Act being violated by a bunch of sales guys.
Now, how many of the people would order a Porsche versus buying what you had on the Sherman floor?
The first-time buyer always bought from the what we had in
The lot.
inventory. Second time, almost exclusively orders.
Oh, really?
And also, it was a smaller market then. You had enthusiasts. We didn't have four-doors. We didn't have SUVs. So it was an enthusiast buyer. They were sports car, sports-oriented buyers. With the advent or the production of SUV, buyer demographic changed slowly at first, and then the sports car buyers became sort of the smaller numbers, because SUV, Macan and Cayenne, those were the number cars and are the number cars.
Was there a big push for buying cars back and selling them the used car side as much? Like you see that so much today with certified cars to sort of build the inventory. Was that a focus back then?
Not particularly. You would always take in trade the guy's previous Porsche, and pricing was pretty much known. Hemmings Motor News or Auto Trader. But when you bought the cars new, there was no discounting. So whatever the sticker price was, that was the market value. In plain old economic theory, the lowest price paid for a car is the market value. Everybody paid the same. They paid sticker. So when you went to trade the car in, you knew exactly the value, knew what the guy paid. You gave him a slight amount of depreciation, and he moved on to the next one. It was very easy, very simple, and smaller,
Yeah.
and not nearly as competitive as it is
So what
today.
year did you start selling? Porsche?
82.
So 82. That is, that's a recession or coming out of recession?
That was coming out of a recession. I didn't know that there was a recession. Brumos was a highly regarded dealership, and we had more inventory than anyone else. I had at least one car of everything Porsche sold as a demo. And we sales guys we could buy, it was a 20% margin, let's say a $100,000 car, the dealer paid 80 for. We could, as salespeople, buy one for the 80 grand. Deal was we had to keep it for 1 year, then we could sell it. So every year I'd put my new car, my 1-year-old 911, on the showroom floor and sell it immediately.
Oh.
So it was a great way to have us. We didn't have to buy them. We did, but a year, that's
Right.
all you took.
Oh.
So fun times.
Now, did you have to? What I tell people all the time in terms of how it's a little bit tougher for, I think, salespeople today is that back in '82 there was a pretty large difference between the performance and quality of a 911 versus, say, a 1982 Celica or Supra or whatever it is. So you could clearly see what you were paying for. But fast forward to today, there are other cars manufacturers that for less money come very close to the performance and quality of a Porsche.
Yes.
Through the years, were you seeing that, and was it making your job harder?
Yes, it did. But if you were well educated as a salesperson, knew your product, there was no reason you couldn't overcome the objections.
Okay.
And being a real enthusiast helped immensely. I'd hear people come in and say, I talked to Joe Blow out in California. That guy knew nothing about his product. I wouldn't buy from him. And they go, yours. I went, well, I'm an enthusiast. I love the product.
Yeah.
So, it's part of selling anything, to have the knowledge and to be able to overcome any objection. And you can't overcome my Porsches.
Yeah.
So in '82, that was the beginning of the 944.
Yes.
So you have a clientele that's the whole, oh my God, Porsche's going to front engine water cooled, the world is ending, is kind of gone past the initial shock. We have the 928, you have the 924, but now this much more refined car, the 944, that was much cheaper than a 911. So when you got into the sales job, I guess they must have told you this car is coming out.
They said it's coming and good times are coming. We had a waiting list of about 2 years long for 944s.
Really?
Wow.
They brought it. very similar to the Boxster. When the Boxster was introduced, the price point, and it was a Porsche. There was some resistance to the 944 in that it was kind of like that 914.
Yeah.
It was a Volkswagen. Well, no, it was an Audi built in Neckarl zone, but it was a great car, great price, and allowed people to enter into the Porsche brand.
Yeah, and we get that we just got that comment this week on one of our, I think we were talking about Has Porsche Lost Its Way podcasts, and people were saying Porsche needs to bring out another sort of not affordable, because Porsches are never really truly affordable, but something at a lower price point to be available for younger folks and folks that might not have a six-figure savings for a car.
For many years, I believed strongly in that we needed a more affordable entry-level Porsche. And I've changed my mind and my perspective over the last couple of years. And if you look at it from an economic point of view, let's say you're Porsche AG, you're the factory. You build sports cars, and that's a brand. There's an icon. The demand for sports cars is what we call, in economic terms, they call it inelastic. That means you can raise the price, but you're not going to affect the demand that much because people believe in the brand. It's called inelastic demand. Now, the four doors, the Macans, the Panameras, those cars have huge competitors, and you can't raise the price that much. You do raise the price, and you're in deep trouble.
Right. There's alternatives that people will consider.
The sports cars is different. So you've got this dichotomy of sports cars versus the others. And Porsche, quite frankly, they can't afford to bring in my estimation, an affordable sports car. It tarnishes the brand, and there's too much competition for them to make money at low volume.
Whenever someone says to me, they need to build an affordable sports car, and something like the Toyota,
Supra?
No, not the Supra.
Not
Not the GR.
BRZ.
The
Like
BRZ,
the Supra, the BRZ, something like that. And I said, let me tell you what's going to happen. I want there to be a little history of Porsche and entry-level cars.
Yeah.
It's going to be underpowered. It's going to share a motor from another manufacturer, probably a Volkswagen, since that's the parent family.
Yeah.
The press is going to hate it. They're going to say it's not a Porsche,
Yes,
because it doesn't have the Porsche experience in it. And I said, and everyone who is an enthusiast will just poo-poo on it, and they'll sell a lot of them, but it'll always have this tarnished look.
Yeah.
Think about anything that's come out, right? Entry level has always gotten, even when the Boxster came out, I remember reading how it's underpowered. They should have put more power. And when the S came out, they're like, finally, this is what Porsche should have built in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, how about the controversy of building the Boxster in Finland? I had people say, I'm not going to take a Boxster if it's built in Finland. I want my German car to be built in Stuttgart. And I literally had two clients turn down a Yasuka Punky, a Finnish-built Boxster. I said, I'm not doing that.
Wow.
I'm not buying that. I mean, it's not a Porsche. It's built in Finland. No. It's crazy.
Yeah, people tend to throw out some potential solutions for these problems that Porsche, I'm sure, has thought it through.
Yeah.
And not to sound too much like a fanboy, but as Manny said, when you build something that is affordable and low price point, you have to give up some things, and then those are the very things that you get criticized for when the car comes out.
I mean, personally, I would love Porsche to build a $50,000 car.
Oh, me
in fact,
too. Me too.
Back
Yeah.
when I was president in 2012, we had dinner with, I think, the CEO of Porsche, and he asked me that. He said, would you like to see Porsche make a entry-level affordable sports car? I was like, I would love to see that.
Yes.
I would bring in a much younger audience into the club and whatnot. Yeah. And he listened to my excitement, everything. Then he goes, "We're not going to build it." He goes, "We don't have to." And it was right.
That's the point.
They were building so many cars.
Yes.
They didn't have enough capacity for all the 911s that people wanted. Now, like you said, that's the icon. That's the one that people want. When the enthusiasts love the Caymans and the Boxsters.
Oh, yeah.
The person just coming in from the cold, the 911 is the Porsche.
Yes.
And he said, we don't have enough space to build as many for what the demand is.
Yeah.
He said, so why would we build an entry-level car?
Well, so many people have said to me recently, isn't Porsche going to build a car in the U.S.? There's no way, no way. And they're going, oh, yeah, they could use the Audi facility. They could use the Volkswagen. No, you tarnish the brand one. And then from a logistic and a cost point perspective, you can't do it. You can't build 10,000 cars and make a profit. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So,
But, and this goes back to the topic of the podcast. When the economy goes bad, that's when the discussion of entry-level cars suddenly enters the boardroom, because now you cannot sell the 20% marked up 911 Turbo S for $300,000. Now you got to get something that people who still want to stay in the Porsche game can afford.
yes.
So that's when Boo and I were talking. We were like, what I wonder what it's like being a salesperson when the economy goes sour.
Overall, you struggle financially because no one is a salaried employee as a salesperson. It's starting to happen in California. They'll pay the guys a base salary, like a minimum wage salary, require them to sell 10 cars a month, and so you can make a living. By and large, what would happen during down periods, down cycles, you would make enough money in the good times and you put it away because you knew, cyclical being cyclical, that you'd spend all the money you saved in the good times to get you through the bad times. Salespeople would abandon a dealership in a heartbeat. They would follow the train, whichever brand was the hottest. And Lexus, for example, came along in '89, took away Mercedes money, took Porsche. Lexus was the game. Everybody left and went to sell Lexus. Some of us who were dedicated to the Porsche brand hung out and said, it'll get better, it'll get better. It didn't get better.
Oh.
Salespeople go where the money is typically, unless they're real enthusiasts and diehards. I am one of those.
And how did the dealership change sort of their strategy or handling of the salespeople when times got tougher?
Typically, they said, stay with us, please. We know your income is falling. Don't worry, it will get better. That was 95% of the dealers in the nation. And people would leave, and sales force adjusted to sales volume. However, I worked for a dealership in Arlington, Virginia for 12 years. It was called Heishman's. It was a family-owned business. It's now Porsche of Arlington. When times got bad, the Heishman family said, we value you employees. Porsche has a certain amount of holdback, it was called. It was money paid to the dealer for meeting certain sales goals. The Heishman said, we're going to pay you on the holdback. We're going to increase your commission from 20% of the gross profit. We're going to give you guys 25%. So times were bad. They helped us. They increased our salary. They increased the basis for the profit. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted to work for Heishman's because they treated us like family. It was the best experience I've ever had.
What years was that when you were
1994 through 2005.
Wow, that's a long run.
So you got to see
That was Chick Stanton.
you got to see the coming of the SUV.
Oh, yes.
Well, both the Boxster,
Both Boxster and
Boxster
SUV.
and
Yep.
so let's look at the Boxster. Everyone, we always joke that we should do a podcast on what car really saved Porsche, because everyone says their version of what cars saved Porsche.
Yes.
But the Boxster was a pretty big deal.
Oh, huge. Yes.
They people knew that they were working on an SUV, but that was still years ahead still. So you have this little two-door car that was a hit at the Detroit Auto Show
Oh, yes.
in '93.
Yep.
And so people are waiting for this car.
It was Boxter, Boxter. They didn't put the S on it. And the air intake was down on the rocker panel in front of the rear wheel. That we got all the inquiries in the world. The phone was off the hook. We're starting to get internet inquiries, emails. Oh, we want one of those. That was the first saving of Porsche.
Wow.
And I guess for the salespeople, did you end up seeing more salespeople on the showroom floor because suddenly you had a hot car?
Yeah. At a dealership like Heishman's, because it was such a great place to work, nobody came on new because it was kind of a job for life, like the Japanese industry used to be. But that was the good time. We had waiting lists for Boxsters for almost 5 years. And every one of them sold its sticker. So it was a fair deal for the buyer. We salespeople made good money selling them. And you expanded your client base, and happy times were there again.
So that's an interesting point. You have this hot car coming with huge waiting lists. And was it the norm that dealers were still selling these cars at sticker and there was no such thing as ADMs or markups?
Some of the dealers tried an ADM. They'd add floor mats or ceramic coating or something like that. But by and large, it was just a sticker price car. And 95% of the dealerships they knew better than to start charging over sticker. And ADM, just you alienated the buying public. So, and there was enough profit in the sticker price. Again, it was 20%. It's half that now.
And how about when you started getting news on the four-door, the Cayenne that was coming? Because I'm sure for what people were thinking in terms of it not being a Porsche, as a salesperson, you're like, SUVs are hot and we don't have an SUV to sell.
Yeah.
Was that something a salesperson welcomed?
We enthusiasts went, nah, we didn't want that car. We really didn't want it. We got the Boxster. Who needs one of this is Porsche. We don't have 4 doors and it count the number of letters. Porsche. Well, you had Carrera, Boxstr, all 7 letters.
Yeah.
Cayenne got too many letters in it. So no, we did not welcome the Cayenne at all until we drove the car down at Barber Motorsports Park. They literally took a Cayenne turbo, put a trailer on the back of it, and mounted a 911 turbo on the trailer, and we autocrossed the Cayenne turbo with the
trailer?
With the trailer with the turbo on the back. We autocrossed it, and you walked away going, I love this car.
There you go, Damon.
Wow.
New challenge for your pro solo.
Yeah, I'm going to not autocross it because I don't think I'm going to fix my transmission before parade. Because I want to be sure I don't mess it up. I've got to transport some equipment and all that stuff.
Darn.
So, no autocross.
Maybe when you get back.
Maybe when I get back, exactly.
So they convinced you.
Oh, yeah. And we did hot laps at Barber. Barber had just opened, not to the public at that point. This was 2003. The roads into Barber Motorsports Park were dirt. And the museum was just being built, and the track was stunning. Our mouths fell open. It was they called it the Augusta National of racetracks. And so we got to drive the Cayenne Turbo only around Barber Motorsports Park for 3 days.
Wow.
And you walked away going, I want one of those Cayennes. I want one. So
Now, they debuted in the United States in 2004.
late 2003.
Late 2003? Late 2003. Where their waiting list, was the demand high for them?
Pretty high amongst Porsche owners who wanted an SUV, and they had only Explorers and they had Suburbans, and so it was the 911 owners and the 928 owners who said, "Hey, I'll take a Porsche." So it was slow, and Porsche made one funny error. The first cars that came into the U.S., the first Cayennes, had summer tires on them.
Oh.
They arrived in November with summer tires. Porsche had never sold a car with winter tires before. They never had a need to. Sports cars, you didn't need winter tires on a 911.
Ah.
Because Porsches back then weren't 4-season cars.
No,
sports cars.
exactly.
I mean, the turbo, 993 becomes all-wheeled, and suddenly you've got a 4-season car. But yeah, that's a great point. That people garaged their Porsches in the wintertime. They didn't drive them.
You should have seen the phones ringing off the hook from the new Cayenne buyers. Hey, Mike, you sold me a car, and it's supposed to be 4-wheel drive, and it's doing donuts in my parking lot. Said, Porsche, you blew it. You forgot. Winter. So Porsche changed a lot of the summer tires out as a warranty item for the early Cayenne buyers.
I remember the biggest concern was everyone thought the SUV would be short-lived. Not the Porsche SUV, but SUVs as general would be
Yes.
short-lived. And they were saying Porsche was late to the game.
Absolutely.
Because all these other Japanese American manufacturers had already come out of SUVs. They said the demand would be on the downhill of SUVs, and Porsche's coming to the party late.
It was a trend or a fad,
Yep.
SUVs, that like station wagons used to be.
Everyone's going to go back to sedans and realize that these big monstrosities isn't what they want, and would abandon them.
And look today on the highway, how many sedans do you see? It's a shrinking number.
Oh, yeah.
Just that'll be the next big thing.
I remember
Sedans.
at the Porsche parade in Sacramento, which might have been 2000, I think. And so
Yes.
word out was that Porsche was going to build this Cayenne, and I think they had a press conference. Why they were not going to be racing at Le Mans at the top level was because they were taking all their resources towards this SUV that they were developing.
Yep.
And that's when one of the members made a shirt and distributed them among the membership that said, screw Le Mans, we're building an SUV.
I've never seen that.
Yeah,
That-
I remember the Porsche executives seeing it the first time on the Concord field, like wearing it. They were not happy at all.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Before these saviors, the Boxer and the Cayenne, what year was it when, as a salesperson, you love the brand, but you're saying, will the brand be around? Would that be the-
1988, 87, 88, 89.
Yeah.
A lot of that was determined by the exchange rate, too. People, I mean, you build the same car, but Porsche was tied to the U.S. dollar German mark exchange rate back then.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, let's take a 1986 911 Cabriolet. Average sticker price then was probably 50,000, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
18 months later, because of the exchange rate fluctuation, that same car had gone up 50% in price. Same car, one model year different, from 86 to 87. It's astounding. Porsche raised prices 10% a month, trying to compensate. Yeah, so you'd have a car that was built in August, it would be, say, 50,000. One built in October was 55,000, and then the next one was 60,000. And then all these 10% a month. And you talk about you can't give them away when it's a 10% increase. Guy goes, well, I was here last week and it was only 55. How come it's 65 now? You go, German mark is really strong against the U.S. dollar.
Plus, throw in the fact that while their charm back then was that they were handmade,
Yes.
they were probably a little bit too handmade, and it wasn't the most efficient. So when so you were around to see the transition of the 964 to 993, which wasn't just the body style, but it was also how they built their car. Where the
Yes.
993 comes out, and you're told as a salesperson, I'm sure, that this is going to be $5,000 less than the previous model.
How can that be? Oh, no. We thought that'll only decrease the value of the previous cars. However, volume and demand take care of that over time. But when they came in, the Kaizen, the on-demand, they predicted that had Porsche stayed with the manual building of the cars, that a 911 would have cost $170,000 instead of $40,000. So it's crazy numbers. Yeah.
And was it so when you first see the 993? But that's a big departure at the time from the 964. 964 will look still like a G body a little bit, except for the bumpers, but the 993 is a big time change.
Well, I know that you're a 964 aficionado. However, when they came out, we looked at those baby buggy bumpers and went, no way, we don't like those. Look how gross that is. That's terrible. 993 was beautiful. It was delicate. And the hips.
Yeah.
But that was strictly an interim model. They should have kept building it longer, I think. But that's past
so when
its
then
prologue.
the next one's a 996, and they go water cooled.
Yes.
Did the average customer care? Or was it something that, as an enthusiast, you were like, yes, this is a monumental change. But did the actual person, average person who comes in and says, my dream is to own a 911, did that make a big of a deal?
It didn't bother the first-time guy.
Okay.
It bothered the Porsche body of enthusiasts. And I, quite frankly, was one of those. Until you realized they had reached peak efficiency with the air-cooled cars. You had so many regulations for noise and emissions, so they'd taken it as far as they could. And you adapt if you want, kind of like the T hybrid. I think that's the future, as is, well, water-cooled 911s. Nobody thinks about it now.
Which transition was most exciting for a salesperson, going from G-body to 964 to 993, 993 to 996, 996, 997, 997? Was there one particular model that you go, oh, I can't wait till this comes because I'm going to be making lots of money?
No, but you looked at it as typically performance and design. 997 was a biggie. That was, we knew that they finally were going to get away from the 996 fried egg headlights and all the criticism. And the 997 went back to what we called the roots in terms of literally just the design.
Yeah.
My namesake, Michael Maurer, was a guy who said, we got to go back to the roots. And that fixed it with the 997. And then, of course, GT3 production over the years has increased dramatically. So they're not as unobtainium as they used to be, but those are still wonderful. Oh, that I want a 4-liter, 2012 4-liter GT3 RS, and I would be happy for the rest of it.
When did you realize, because originally GT3 was not going to be a brand.
Exactly.
And then it became a brand on its own, very organically. And now, that's, the turbo's always been top of the line.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people, we ask them, they think the GT3 is top of the line.
Yeah.
And so how much education did you have to do to customers to explain where the GT3 stood and what it was for, or did they come in already knowing what it was?
It was grossly misunderstood because of the reputation of a 911 turbo. That was the poster child, turbo, black on black turbo. The GT3s were produced in small numbers, and I think within the enthusiast community, Andreas Pruniger was one who promoted it through his contacts, his network, and a lot of my well-heeled customers who stood in line to get whatever Porsche built, they were the guys who got the cars and spread the word. And numbers were very small, so they held value extremely well. And over time, everybody wants a GT3. Well, okay.
What were there any concerns? Because Manny talks about this all the time. When the RS America was built for this market, RS Americas are sought after now, but when they first came out for a salesperson, they weren't necessarily the success that people.
Well, I think that Damon, I don't know how quickly you can pull up this file with the sales numbers from that time period, because you got to look at the time period too. We meaning Porsche, was really hurting, and then Mike went back to about the exchange rate.
Yes,
that was affecting them. That's why 964s were so expensive.
Yes,
because of the exchange rate, and that had to be tough. Even if though they may not be competing against a Corvette, for the average guy who's not brand loyal, that had to be a tough pill to swallow. How much a 911 costs versus a Corvette.
I have sales numbers for the 70s and 80s, but not for anything else.
Not for the dismal 90s.
Put it on in post, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. You had a headline picture that was sent to me about today's podcast. It was a Cincinnati newspaper talking about Porsche sales in 1989-90 being down into the 4,000 annually and 3,000 annually.
Wow.
A Toyota store can do that in 6 months. Porsche did it in a whole year. That's all they sold. So it was brutal, quite frankly. Dealerships went under. Mercedes and BMW were trying to buy Porsche, and we literally thought Porsche is going to disappear and be gobbled up, and they'll lose everything. The end of the era. But Porsche, because of the Boxster, because of the Cayenne, hung in there. It was touch and go there for a while.
And then when they decided to go into the 4-door sedan, how was that received? By now, were you like, okay, it helped us with the Boxster, it helped us with the Cayenne, It's one more thing we can sell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although you're in a different category of the four-door sedan because you're competing against 7 Series, 5 Series, S-Class Mercedes. So you got a different buyer demographic. Not an enthusiast so much as somebody who wanted a Porsche or who had numerous S-Class Mercedes and 7 Series BMWs and said, I want something different. Just total different demographic. From a sales perspective, you had to adapt to the enthusiast and then to the soccer mom mentality and then finally the luxury sedan market.
Well, I would think that would just give you another basket
Exactly.
and another thing to sell and another opportunity.
And you broadened your buyer network, and it always turned out for the best.
So to go back to the sales figures, so in from 90, when the really the 964, I know it came out in 89, but
Right.
it really reached a lot with 9,140 cars for the U.S. and Canada.
How many?
9,140. Drops down to 91. This is a recession now.
Oh yeah.
Drops down to 4,388.
Or
4,000
more numbers.
Wow.
It goes up to 92, I think.
Unemployment.
And 93, that's the low point. 3,713 cars, which brings you back to the Ars America question, because at this point, Porsche is desperate.
Oh yes.
They are desperate to sell cars, and that's when they go to Porsche Club America and say, what does it take for your members to buy a car? And the EC at the time said, you got to make it cheaper, you got to make it more enthusiast-oriented, and they do what Porsche still does. They take stuff off the car, make it a special edition, then make it less optional to add all the stuff back on again.
Exactly.
Which most people did, I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, air conditioning, you can add it on.
Yeah.
Now, the base price was way down here, but air conditioning and sound system, what the joke amongst us sales guys was, pay more, get less. I mean, that's,
At that time, also, they were doing collaborations with Mercedes and Volkswagen. Were you thinking that was possibly going to be the fate of the company?
I
Gobbled
thought
up by one of them?
I thought Mercedes was going to buy Porsche.
I was impressed, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though there was really, you look back now and you say there was no intent from Mercedes, but that was the talk.
That was the talk.
Because they were the giant.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the funds to be able to, the Porsche was nowhere near the size they are today.
Well, Manny, the numbers that you just read in sales in 89, 90, 91, what saved Porsche financially was Porsche became a hedge fund. They were hedging currencies, and they made more money hedging currencies, foreign currencies, than they did selling cars.
I've heard this
Yeah,
before.
they were a hedge fund. That's,
Yeah, I mean, 3,700
Greedy
cars.
King.
I mean, that's U.S. and Canada, but nonetheless, we're the biggest market.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode too well, keeping everyone employed and the company running.
Well,
So-
the guy named Wiedeking was the president of Porsche AG at the time, and he was a financial genius. He was the one that...
I'm sure when he started, Mike, because I think Porsche almost going through a CEO every year.
Oh, yeah. We remember Schultz and all... Yeah.
It was. I remember seeing a different guy announced every year. That
Brian
was
Bowler.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And so when Wiedeking came, did you think this is another guy that'll be gone in a year?
Yeah. Yeah. He was just too big and too not an enthusiast, but he saved Porsche financially. There's no doubt about it.
Speaking of finances, when did leasing become a option at the dealership?
As pricing went up, so did the leasing volume. Reason being, you could lease a car you paid the depreciation, not the entire value of the
They had
car.
leasing opportunities in the 80s?
Yeah,
Oh.
but it was not regulated fully. And by that I mean there were no controls over what you could be charged when you turned the vehicle in. There were no set residuals. And dealers or the local bank would set the residual, and there were some horrible thefts. I mean, people really were taken advantage of.
Really?
So it gave leasing a bad name, even though it's the way to go, unless you plan on keeping the car for 10 years. Or if you plan on having a car payment every year, lease it. Just make the car payment. Or if you're buying an electric, a Taycan, where the technology is changing rapidly, I personally would say lease it, and then in 3 years' time you can decide, do I want to keep this car or do I want the latest technology? So here, Mr. Dealer, are the keys. I'll take the newest one. Or I love this car. I'm keeping it. I'll buy it out for the residual.
And a salesperson, you didn't care because you guys still got a commission on the car,
Yeah.
regardless how it was
The
financed,
same-
it was
we
leased,
didn't
or
care. No. Although, if you try and make it long term, you want the guy to lease because 3 years from now he's going to come back, and you have an opportunity to sell him or lease him another car. So it increases the turn usually, not always, but leasing good in many, many regards, as long as the residuals are realistic.
Well, back to Vu's question about lean times. Did you sell more used cars or try to get more used cars? That when Porsche started coming out with the CPO program, they weren't the first ones. There was a lot of manufacturers that started embracing this certified pre-owned concept. Was that something, a product of a recession or low sales that they were starting to, or did they realize this was lost revenue that non-Porsche dealers were taking advantage of selling used Porsches?
It was lost revenue, quite frankly, that motivated that. Many Porsche dealers just kept their Porsche cars to sell. And as new car volumes decreased, we had to have something to sell, so the used cars became, quite frankly, a bigger income than the new cars when in times of restricted supply. And the certified pre-owned was a wonderful program, still is. It's a great way to go. Yeah.
What year did the Porsche and selling with another mark separate, and the dealership became focused just on the one brand?
Finally, you could subsist, you could live on the sales at a Porsche standalone. And then Porsche said, dedicated facility, build a spec building, 2001.
Okay.
The very first one was in Pennsylvania, the Porsche spec dealership. Porsche came to that dealership and opened it. It was a big deal. Porsche spec, all brushed aluminum and red lettering.
Did we all just learn a fact that we didn't know?
I didn't know.
That's what.
You would ask me, I would have thought Southern California.
Yeah.
Easy.
You would think so, yeah.
Wow.
Porsche of the main line back
No
then.
kidding, really.
main
That's the
line?
first one.
They were the first one.
Is that
And-
Conshohocken?
Concha, you took the words right out of my mouth.
That's why you listen to PCA Insider.
That's
We
right.
drop knowledge here.
It was a very big deal.
Wow.
And Conshohocken, because they built that Porsche spec building, got all kinds of extra cars. And I was suddenly, my allocations started disappearing, and I'm looking, where are these cars going? Conshohocken, they went to Pennsylvania. They were getting all the desirable cars. Why? Because they built the building, the first one.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
A good salesperson not only sells the customer the car that the vehicle that they came in for, but they look for opportunities down the road to put them into maybe another product that you sell. So how much of someone came in wanting a 911, bought that, and then eventually into a Cayenne or into a four-door, versus someone that came into a four-door and now get into they see the fun of a two-door and they're like, oh, now I want to get into a two-door. Like, what happens more?
Yeah. More often, somebody comes in for a sports car
Okay.
and says, well, that was kind of a dream, but I didn't realize it was that difficult to get in and out of. We really need an SUV, or we really want the smaller Macan. Sports cars, that's a narrow market in the overall scheme of things. That's why Porsche almost went under, quite frankly. All we had was sports cars and 928 and then the 944. So, but the Macans, Manny, you just drove the Macan Electric up at New Jersey. What a fun car that is to drive.
I bought a Macan from your old dealer, Porsche Arlington.
Yes.
CPO. Yeah, it's the funny thing was, so like when you were saying before about inelastic, was it?
Inelastic.
Inelastic.
Had we been looking for a sports car, would have been no question. We don't Boxster, Cayman, or 911.
Yep.
But my wife needed an SUV, so I gave her choices. I said, we have Toyota, Lexus, Honda, all these different choices that would compete with the Macan.
Yes.
And ultimately she just said, well, I know, her words were, I'll go ahead and drive any of those cars, the test drive, but I can tell you, I'm going to love the Porsche. So I said, all right, we'll save some time, and you can decide between a Cayenne and a Macan then.
Yeah. Roxanne spoken like a true wife
Right.
of the.
Brainwashed all these years. She wasn't hard to sell her, but it was interesting. While I was at the dealer waiting for all the paperwork to be processed, they sold 4 Macans, 1 electric, 3 base models, and it was really interesting listening, just eavesdropping
Yes.
as people came in to ask about, we want to talk to everyone pronounced it differently.
Yes.
But they all knew about the car, and most of them they weren't shopping. They knew what they wanted. They were just asking,
Yep.
what's the difference of the S? What about these options? Blah blah blah. But they, this was still like a dream for them to own a Porsche. Even
Oh,
even if it was a
positive.
Macan.
Well, now let's call the Macan a mini saver, M-I-N-I, a mini saver of Porsche, because when the Macan came out in 15, that filled a market. That was the compact, the CUV market.
The CUV, yeah.
And we again had a 3-year waiting list on those cars.
Wow.
And that was a fun
Still their
car to-
best-selling car.
Oh yeah, and deservedly so. That's
That's the first time I've heard someone kind of refer to the Macan as a mini saver of
It was,
Porsche.
yeah.
But it makes sense though because of the volume.
I think was it Smoking Tire? They were comparing it to like a sport hatchback.
Yeah.
yes.
Said
yeah.
they'd be able to decide between like a GTI or a Macan. They're not
Yeah.
too far,
Mhm,
and which one would you choose? Type thing. So it's I would imagine as a salesperson now you have no reason to leave the family. If you're as a customer, you don't have to leave to go look for an SUV or a sedan because
Yes, you
have
just stay within
everything
the
short of a
brand.
pickup truck, which let's hope they don't make one. They have most everything.
Never say never.
Yeah, I would, a Porsche pickup truck sounds cool to me if they do it well, right? But that's
I-
not on brand. Not on brand.
I could not see myself throwing lumber into the back of a Porsche.
Yeah.
Remember, VW had a pickup truck back in the late 70s.
The Doka?
No?
No, remember little diesel?
Oh,
Rabbit?
the diesel rabbits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the-
I remember those. Yeah.
They also
The
had
pickup
some,
truck.
They also had. I thought they made pickup trucks
They
in
did.
Europe or something.
Yeah.
I remember we went to the car show.
VW Amarok.
Yeah, I remember we went to the car show, the LA car show, and they had them, and I was like, "This is pretty cool."
It
It
is,
was,
but we
it was
can-
almost like a full size pickup that was a VW.
Well, yeah, we can handle VW with a pickup.
Sure,
No, Porsche. No.
that's why I'm waiting to see what the 7-passenger
Oh, yeah.
SUV is going to look like. But the funny thing was the first time I saw the Cayenne, they brought one in 2003, I think, to a board meeting, PCA board meeting, and I'm sitting in it, and the CEO looks in and goes, "So what do you think?" And I said, "I can't buy one for my family." And he says, "Why not?" I said, "I need 3 rows. I have 3 kids." And he's like, "You can fit 3 kids in the back seat." I'm like, "That's World War III." Let's reach
Oh,
this.
yeah. Isn't
I
that
think we
the
gotta have
truth?
space where they can't touch each other.
World War III.
So I told him, I said, "So call me when you have a third row in your SUVs." And now they're finally coming out with one.
The 80s and 90s, the recessions and downturns, that I would say for a dealership or a salesperson, you can kind of see that coming. But fast forward to 2020 with the pandemic, that was pretty much overnight. How stressed were you when that came about? Obviously for your health, but your livelihood.
The Taycan had just been introduced, and I was in LA for training at PECLA, and they said, we're cutting training short. We're shutting everything down. So we got on an airplane in March of 2020, and the dealership said, "Okay, everybody go home." And we were closed for about 3 weeks. Nobody came, nobody went. The suppliers to Porsche in Europe all shut down. So you suddenly had the supply chain shut down. No cars were being built. You can't sell from an empty cart, is the old phrase.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in deep trouble. We had nothing to sell. Everybody was afraid to take their masks off. Eventually, because of, and this is a personal opinion, I don't know this factually, a lot of people started buying limited numbers of cars because they had pandemic money. there were a lot of people with a lot of money, and that was burning holes in their pockets. So that became an era of additional dealer markup. Why? Because there were no cars and the demand was huge.
So you got to make as much as you can on the cars that you have.
Yeah. And I can see where people might be critical of Porsche for that. But from a purely economic point of view, if you've got 10 cars to sell, you need to make as much on each one as you can.
Yeah.
The other criticism of Porsche lately has been, you guys have raised the prices too much or too expensive. Well, let's assume that you're Porsche, the factory. You build the car, and then you see your dealers making $100,000 extra profit on each vehicle. Wait a minute, I built the car. I want some of that. So it's the factory that says we're underpricing our product. And the dealer body's going, no, keep them low so we can mark them up. I mean, it's interesting turn
It's
of
business.
events.
It's business marketing.
I tell people all the time when I was in the packaging game,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if we got a great price on a product and we told our customers and we sold it, if we would sell out, we didn't look at it as, wow, we sold out. We were like, oh my God, we priced it too cheap.
Exactly.
We could have made more money per
right.
unit if we had priced it more. We made a mistake.
Yep.
So, you know, it was clear you wanted to get the most while making the customer happy.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and it varied because some customers I would mark things up sometimes 200%. But the customer was still getting it cheaper than from somewhere else, so he was happy. He didn't care. He didn't know I was making 200% profit. He was just happy he was getting it less expensive.
Well, now here's an observation about Porsche pricing. There's an old deep-seated attitude amongst Americans. We think that if it costs a lot of money, it must be good. And I'll take one of those. It's $300,000. I can afford that. So.
My friend who's a general manager for a number of dealerships, of course, he always gets the questions when people meet him. Say, oh, can you get me a good deal on this? And he always says, you'll leave happy.
There you go.
You'll always leave happy.
What a perfect, yes, yep. Yep.
All right, man, time has flown, and I know we have a few more questions for Mike, and maybe those of you that are listening in or watching on YouTube, if you have questions, just throw them in the comments, and I'm sure he'll read them and reply back to them. I want to remind you to be sure to head over to PCA.org, sign up for PCA's newsletters, performance news, e-brake news, Mart Fresh, all free. Let's hit a couple of Porsche news
Before you do
items.
that, we're going to take 10 more minutes real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
COVID. What was that like? Because that's no longer, it's a recession in the sense that it was born out of the fact that no one was going out.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with the fact that now customers may not be coming in, and if they do, you got to be far. I mean, everything that you use as a sales tool suddenly has now been taken away from you.
I was fortunate in that I had 30 plus years of clients. So I did so much of it on the phone. Mike, get me this. Mike, get me that. Don't hurt me price-wise too badly. Okay, you're a valued customer and a friend. Don't worry. So a lot of it was telephonic, and we'd even ship the car in a flatbed to the guy's house. Otherwise, it was tough, Manny. Really tough. There's no supply whatsoever. Yeah.
And thankfully, you had the internet, because if something if COVID had happened in the 80s, you've been disconnected from the world.
Yeah, you throw away the keys.
Well, I guess when things first started closing down in that March, at least here on the East Coast, it happened in March of 2020. Was there like panic at the dealership about the fact that people may not have jobs to pay for cars?
Yes.
And what was, because I know when I was in packaging, and that was the worry was, no one's going to be buying anything. So if you don't buy anything, then you don't need to ship anything. If you don't ship anything, you don't need boxes. You don't need packaging. Well, that's going to hit us really hard.
The trickle-down effect. To make an example of that, in 1987, when we had the Black Monday, the stock market crashed, a lot of my 9/11 clientele were stockbrokers. And you could tell what the stock market was doing on a daily basis by the guys coming and going physically from the dealership. On Black Monday, I took in trade. We bought outright 3 stockbrokers' cars. One personalized tag was DJIA, Dow Jones Industrial Average. The other car was Stocks, STOCKS, I don't recall the third, but it was stockbroker related.
Oh.
These guys lost a fortune and they had to make margin calls. So the first thing they did was take the Porsche and say, "Can you buy it from me? I need the money."
Wow.
That's how rapidly and how quickly things. COVID, same thing. There was nobody there. Frightening. And then the money came. Then the government money came.
Yeah.
And it was just like an old-fashioned apple in a barrel shoot.
Yeah. But then it came, around full circle. Now you've got people with all this money, no place to go. So let's buy cars and
That's right.
buy options and YOLO, right?
YOLO.
YOLO.
Yeah, that's what the guys from Porsche AG told me was they weren't expecting the YOLO or hey, I may not survive this. I'm finally going to buy the car that I've always dreamed about. I'm not going to wait anymore.
Yep.
Well, I've been finding cars for a lot of my old clients. Some of the highly desirable cars, the 4-liter GT3 RSs, the 918 Spiders, and the Carrera GTs. And that market is just on fire. It's almost a minute-to-minute appreciation for the highly desirable cars. So Porsche's strong. The market is very strong. So.
All right. Back to Porsche news. First item here, Manny, you're talking about, it's almost like a bad word these days. Tariffs.
Oh.
Well, it's there was rumors, or not rumors, but false information that Porsche was going to start a manufacturing facility in the U.S. They have confirmed that they will not be starting. And I think one of the primary reasons is it takes a lot to start up a factory, even in Germany, to start up a factory, much less moving into the U.S. And I think Porsche just looked at the numbers and maybe the economic climate, political climate, all those factors, and not surprisingly said that we're just going to make you pay for the tariffs, essentially.
Yeah.
Price is going to go up.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's probably cheaper for them to just stay the course as opposed to possibly building somewhere else and take the risk of it not working out.
What's interesting is, like Mike pointed out, the 944 was built at the Audi plant. Cayennes are built in Slovakia.
Yes.
For the Boxer like my Boxer was built in Finland, there was zero difference in quality reported between Finnish and German Boxers.
I'll address that later.
Well,
sounds like another podcast.
At least
topic.
At least that's what the numbers say.
Well, in real surveys, there was a slight difference.
Oh, interesting.
Yusuke Punky actually beat Zuffenhausen.
Oh, really?
In terms of quality.
I was just going to say,
Whoa.
I wonder if the Finlanders beat them.
Beat them in paint.
That's why they stopped building them there.
Speaking of building, they're building something secretly and new. The next item has to do with a Cayenne.
Well, those who follow know it's not too much of a secret. Porsche has announced they're doing a Cayenne EV, but they went to this hill climb and surprised everyone by entering the mule, the Cayenne EV mule in the hill climb, and won and set a record. And this car that was pretty well adorned. It was camo, but it said Cayenne over the whole thing. So I don't think they were hiding the fact this was the Cayenne EV. And the announcer was very vocal about how quick this SUV took the course. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to hopefully this means we're going to see a production version. If not at the end of this year, hopefully next year, and see it. That'll mean that Porsche, from what I understand, they will be making the hybrid Cayenne, the gas Cayenne, and the EV Cayenne all at the same time.
Yep.
So you will not have any lack of choice.
True.
Another sort of fork in the road for a salesperson as the ICE versus electric. You were there for a little bit with the Taycan, but now with the Macan and soon coming Cayenne. How do Porsche salespeople navigate those waters?
They adjust to the demand.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I'm a big fan of the electrics. I love the performance, but the infrastructure isn't there. The charging network is not there. Salespeople adapt to whatever they have to sell, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But the future is electric. I mean, you can't get around that, I don't think.
Yeah.
It may take longer than anticipated, But
Do you think 20 years from now, when we look back and just like how it was sort of rocky start with the Cayenne and the rocky start with the Boxster, that will go, it's funny how we were worried about all this.
all that ice, that
They-
internal combustion,
yeah.
polluting stuff.
Manny talks about it all the time. I don't want to fix 20 different things in my ICE engine when I just have a motor that just works.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I remember when Fred Schwab, who was
Oh, sure,
CEO
yeah.
of Porsche Cars North America, at a banquet at Parade, announced that this Cayenne was coming.
Yes.
The entire 900,000 people in the room booed.
Oh,
And I remember Hans-Peter Porsche from the family was seated at the head table, and he put his hands over his face like to say, "What have we done?" and of course, Fred Schwab was like besides himself, saying, "You guys don't get it," blah blah blah. And we didn't get it.
No.
And fast forward to the Keystone Parade, which might have been 2009, maybe, I think.
Yeah.
2009, yeah. They surprised us by bringing a Panamera, which hadn't been shown yet in the U.S.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
they trucked it to the parade site in Colorado. It was on its way to L.A.
Okay.
And they stopped in Colorado. CEO made them stop in Colorado, and they surprised everyone. Now, on the stage was a new GT3 they had announced.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they bring this, and I was sitting next to Detlef von Platten at the time, who was the CEO of Porsche Cars North America. And they surprised me. I didn't realize that they were going to.
We were nervous though.
Panamera.
Those of us that knew, I'm like, I've heard of how they treated the Cayenne. Please don't let that happen.
don't.
Everyone rushed to the front. I mean, you had 900 people in this
stage,
room that
yeah.
got up and rushed, and they went right past the GT3 to this new Panamera. And I looked over at Detlef. I'm like,
Well.
this is how you know you have a success, and that how people have accepted.
Yep.
Because when they booed the Cayenne, everyone's passing the GT3 and wants
Now
pictures in the Panamera.
Curious. That's.
Yeah, so it takes time to accept things, now we don't even think twice when we have a Panamera come to an event.
Well, you go back to the horse and buggy, and then we had automobiles. Oh my gosh! And now we have electric. Ooh, we'll forget all about the ice cars. Our kids will.
Yeah.
Who needs one of those?
Best
old
article I
gas-
wrote was how the horse will not be replaced because the horse can give you companionship that a car cannot. And I was thinking, what are we going to be reading about ourselves?
Exactly.
that horse and companionship.
My kids
and
will
mucking the stalls. No.
my kids will appreciate not like asking me to go take a shower before we go out because I was riding around in my older cars and they can smell
the gas.
and the oil.
And when my daughter will bring her cats over, and we let them into the garage. The cats love the garage, but when they come out, she's like, "Oh, you smell like oil." Yeah.
Let's talk about actually some things going on in France right now. That's your next news item.
So by the time you're hearing this, the race will be over. And let's hope that we're talking about Porsche's 20th win at Le Mans. We're going to hope for a lot of attrition from my friends from Toyota again, and maybe Ferrari. That's a tough thing about
Let
these
us
races. These races now, that it isn't the attrition of the old days when more than half the field would be gone by the hour 12. But these cars just keep on running. So it's going to be a close race. I'm going to have to suck up and pay Cinemax to be able to watch the race because Lord knows the WC does not give anything away free. But as we record this, and we were just talking about this before we started the podcast, it looks like one of the Penske cars got disqualified, the qualifying time. So they're going to start the race, but they're going to start at the back of the hypercar class. So it is a 24-hour race, so it's not the end of the world. It's not a sprint race like Formula One where you got no hope of podium. It's a long race, and Porsche's going to have to be smart on strategy. But yeah, so if you're watching this, if you don't know who won, either Google it, or I'm sure we'll have an article on PCA.org, and I hope we're writing about a victory.
Yes.
Porsche has 4 963s, and 3 of them are Penske Motorsports. So
You also wrote about a very cool car that turned up. It was with 3 letters, RSP.
RSP, yes, which I was surprised everyone saw the little teaser Porsche put out before they put out the whole car, and no one could figure out what RSP was, thinking RS. I thought it was RS prototype. I was trying to figure out RSP because they have never, I don't think, named after a person, the initials, which is actually Roger Penske. His middle name is Cyril. and
RS.
yeah, SEARLE is his middle name, so it's RSP. And this is essentially, this is not like the GT1. So the GT1 was required by FIA that Porsche build 20 versions of the street car.
Yep.
And that's why you had the GT1 Strassen version. And you just couldn't slap on some leather. You actually had to build a car that was going to be legal to drive on roads. Where this car, I can't wait. I have a lot of questions about it. Like, where is it street legal? Because evidently it was only street legal on certain roads so they could drive it for the video and whatnot. It's a single seater. They basically took a 963 and nicely equipped it with leather. And every video I see, the people are wearing headphones, so it makes me wonder how loud is it in there that they have to wear a radio headset. They raised the car up, which doesn't flatter it like the regular race car is so low. Still multimatic suspension and chassis and whatnot.
But there's one feature that you would never find, at least not like this, in any race car.
The
Can
big
you
old,
see it? It's in
the
the
big
video
old,
right now.
big old cup holder.
Cup holder.
Gotta have a cup
When
holder.
I was writing the article, I was trying to find where the 963 puts their drink system in for the race drivers. Because, they got to have some kind of drink system. But
Not right there.
And I couldn't, but no, they don't have a big gulp. The joke about the cup holder is, we know inside is that the Germans are not big on cup holders. And as much as their engineering just is incredible, it leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to cup holders. As anyone with a 986 or 987 will tell you, I do not trust their cup holders to hold anything more than water.
Manny, I have 2 986 drink holders in my garage. Unmolested drink holders. They attach to the air conditioning outlets.
You still have those?
I still have them.
Wow.
They all broke because people would put a drink in and they would snap off.
Oh.
So I kept extras for my customers who broke theirs, and I kept 2. So I still have 2 of those things.
Yeah, and the guys at Atlanta said that they always send like every quarter a box of all these carry-out cups they collect to show them what Americans are drinking. And he said the Germans are always baffled of how dehydrated America is, that they need 32-ounce cups in their car. So, anyways, I think that was a little bit of a nod to America that they put this really huge cup holder
Big
inside
gulp.
a 963, and hopefully, right now the only place to see it, of course, if you're in Le Mans, you get to see it there. It's going to be at the museum, and then from there they haven't announced where it's going to be. So.
My prediction is
Monterey, maybe?
Monterey.
Monterey.
My
Yep.
prediction is
That'd be
Monterey.
pretty cool if we got to see it in Monterey.
Speaking of Monterey and events, let's remind everyone, Oklahoma City Porsche Parade registration is actually closed now. But for those of you that did sign up, we'll see you July 6th through 12th. We've got a lot of incredible events and some VIPs that'll be there. And we'll make sure we'll capture as much as we can through digital media and share it with all of you that won't be able to make it. Again, Works Reunion Monterey, August 15th. Registration is open. I believe we still have a few slots for judged cars, and we have plenty of space for the corral. So looking forward to seeing you all there. Treffin at Sea, our 2025 70th anniversary cruise. We are sailing at close to 900 people, August 30th through September 6th. There's still room. If you want to join us, we'd love to see you there. Again, we have some incredible events planned and some VIPs that will be joining us as we sail the Northeast. Upcoming videos. You want to do a quick update there, Damon?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
I don't think your mic's on. There it is.
There we go. I thought I turned it on. So we just came out with a video of a tour of Patrick Motorsports in Phoenix,
yep.
Arizona. Bogdan filmed that one, not me. I had to leave a little bit early, and since I wasn't there, it was cool to see this video because you don't see shops that are that large, but also clean and organized. And then they also build everything, CNC machining. It was very cool. If you're interested in that kind of stuff or considering sending your car to Patrick Motorsports or seeing what they can produce,
and it makes total sense now because we've always been very impressed with the vehicles that they've brought to Works Reunion Monterey, and it's reflective of what where they came out of, that shop, soup to nuts. Be it simple maintenance or building one-off customs, they have the capability to do pretty much all of it in-house. And like you said, very organized. James took us through. Those that have watched the video are asking us to go back and maybe talk about some of the projects that they're working on, because they're taking stuff like a standard Tiptronic 993 and turning it into a GT2. They're doing an ST build, but the person wanted a sunroof, so they transplanted a sunroof onto an ST, and lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah, something to
impressive.
think about with them as well is they have Concours winning cars and PCA club racers.
Absolutely.
So they span the gamut.
Yep.
I was going to move on to my next video. I think I've been talking about this video for the past month, 3 or 4 podcasts, and that's the 2025 911 Carrera 4 GTS T Hybrid that I drove. Actually, I was just finishing up the edit right before the podcast, but it will be out. It should be out. Haven't decided when to release it, but either Tuesday after you hear this podcast or the next Tuesday. We'll see. There are a couple content pieces that I'm deciding which to go first for our newsletter. But yeah, the 2025 GTS Hybrid, amazing car. And I think, as we said in another podcast, you don't know that it's hybrid and that there's an electric motor unless somebody told you beforehand. It's just a very fast Porsche 911.
Mike, the three of us here, I think I can safely say, were genuinely impressed with the T Hybrid, just as a car, regardless of the technology of it, just the sheer performance of it. What's the word on the street?
Mixed, quite frankly.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're the unknown technology, or?
Well, the most common thing I hear is, why did they call it a hybrid? They shouldn't have done that. Why? Because of the connotation of hybrid. But they're overlooking the performance aspect, which is, so take the hybrid off.
Peel the sticker off.
Peel the sticker off and enjoy your that's got to just be.
I have to agree. I think it was the worst thing to do is call it a hybrid.
Yeah.
At least for the U.S. Because people think Prius.
Remember, like the what was it, the GMC Tahoes and stuff? They had like a hybrid version, and they stuck like 9 hybrid stickers.
Well, hybrid means better fuel mileage, and usually means less performance.
Yes,
and that's what people equate with. Not that
Prius,
this is going to give you a boost of power. I always tell people, think about Formula One hybrid,
Exactly.
not Prius.
Yeah.
They're doing it for extra power, not to give you a couple more miles per gallon.
Well, the true enthusiast is going to not welcome it immediately until they drive it. Once driven, that's usually the key.
It's their MO. We must hate it first.
We don't like this. It's new. It's
we
different.
We were just talking about yesterday how the club's membership responded to when Porsche went from the 356A to the 356B. It was the end of the world. The world was ending.
Put a crest on the. Oh my gosh!
The change of the body, and it was the end of
blasphemy.
They'll never last.
Putting a quarter window in.
Oh man!
All right. I want to remind you, for those that are interested in racing with folks online, PCASimRacing.com. Check that out. We have insider swag at the PCA web store. We've got mugs, bottles, T-shirts, and stuff that you can show your pride of our show. If you're looking for insider decals, just send us your address information to podcast@pca.org, and we'll send you a set, and you can display them proudly.
And real quick, we'll do this again the next podcast, but CVR, Connecticut Valley Region, just sent me a flyer for their Porsches at the Rock. This is at Lime Rock, 3rd annual. It includes driver's education, autocross, free Porsche gathering on the Midway, Porsche themed swap meet, parade laps, food trucks, and lots of excitement. Saturday, August 2nd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You know, Lime Rock is one track I've never been to.
I never have
never been
either.
to Lime
I've
Rock?
never been for anything.
Yeah.
It's I never went for drivers at a club racing because my car had no prayer of passing the sound limit requirement. Yeah, so I never even tried. And for some reason, whenever they did the Porsche plots with the race series, I just wasn't available. So I kind of chuckled at the fact that I've never been to one of fairly close tracks for me.
Yeah.
Lime Rock.
So are we
I
saying-
played it online a lot.
I-
Are we thinking? Are we thinking road trip?
Oh, I would love to.
to go see Lime Rock for the
Yeah.
first time. I've been there before.
August the 2nd, huh?
Saturday, August 2nd. Yeah.
We might be able to make that happen.
Never, like I said, I've driven a lot of it on online, but never in person.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your 4 decades of being a Porsche ambassador. I know you continue to serve people and find unique Porsches to add to their collection, and you're always our eyes and ears on the street of what's going on. And it's great to have you again.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I think we touched upon a couple of potential podcasts or maybe some Tech Tactics Lives for the future. So for those of you that are listening and watching, you'll see him again. And especially if you're in the Chesapeake or Potomac region, he's always out.
And we didn't
at
mention
events.
what Mike drives right now.
Oh, yeah. What are you driving lately?
Right now, 07 C4S, a 997.
Mike comes out to all of our events,
You know,
our tours and stuff.
I've had more fun, not working 11 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've been able to drive and have so much fun. And to meet a lot of the local guys that I only knew casually. I can't divorce myself from Porsche. It's like your wife says, you don't have anything without. Porsche was my life for so many years. You can't cut off one of my limbs.
It is for all of us here on the podcast. It is our life. It's not just a job. So thank you for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.
Down the road.